I live in Naples, and it has a definite wet and dry season. And when we cover the fungi chapter, it's actually in the dry season. Right now it's early summer and we're getting rain, and so we're getting a lot of fungus that are growing. Here in my dad's yard, I want you to notice on this dead log, and I'm going to try to get in close so you can see it, because these are really pretty. And that's a little fungus that we actually looked at under the microscope in class. So I wanted you to see what that looks like. Here's a piece, let's see. Here's a piece that is broken off. So you can see for scale by my hand. It's got a very pretty fruiting body, doesn't it? Bright red. And it's all over these dead logs. So once again, the fungi are decomposers. They're helping things to be broken down, and some of them can actually be very pretty. There's just some more normal looking. Well, actually, that's probably the same fungus, because I see there's another flowering unit right there. And I wanted to walk you through the yard and show you some other fungi that I found, because I'm always really surprised at how pretty some of them can be. So let's go over here. You can maybe see how wet everything is. We had rain yesterday. And it's interesting to me that the mushrooms, etc., tend to sprout under the trees. Okay, so here between these trees and a brush pile, I want you to notice there's a mushroom, and it's completely open. Remember, this is strictly the fruiting body, and I'm going to flip it over so you can see. There's the gills that have opened to release the basidiospores, okay? And the actual fungus is in the ground. There's one that's not quite open yet. It's past the button stage, but it's not quite open yet. Turbo's going to help me with this whole situation. He's over here trying to dig for me. He says, you got something, Mom? I'll help you. Anyway, so there's that fungus. Then we have on this a whole bunch of lichen. This is lichen. Remember, that is a fungus-algae symbiotic relationship. Under this tree, we have a mushroom that's been broken off, but once again, you can very clearly see the gills in the cap, and that would be where the basidiospores are found. Now, this was an interesting collaboration here. Here you have a cow patty, and you have these small mushrooms. There's one that's already open, completely open. Over here, there's a small mushroom that's completely open. Notice its gills, and they're totally open. That's how they kind of look like an inverted umbrella. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it's a very interesting plant, and I have a feeling that it's a fungi. Look at the weird, or it's in some kind of insectivorous plant. And that could be, it could be an insectivorous plant. I want you to notice right here, there is a mushroom in the button stage. It's not completely up yet. See it right there? It's in the button stage. It's not completely up yet. And once again, right here, there's a stick next to it just full of lichen. Just full of lichen on this stick. See it? It's very pretty along here. This pile over here has some shelf fungus growing. So remember, shelf fungus usually is found on dead wood, which is the case here. And so here, I'm moving the branch for you to see it. Here's your shelf fungus. There you see the little holes where the spores are found. Notice please notice how pretty and bright orange these are. And remember, we also looked at the shelf fungus that was the turkey tail fungus, which was actually very attractive. It's hard to believe that fungi can be attractive, but God can do amazing things, can't he? And here's one that's been broken off of the piece of wood, so it's no longer feeding on there. This is the fruiting body that's no longer attached. And just over past it are some little mushrooms. I almost feel like I'm Alice in Wonderland here with all the mushrooms. Once again, if I turn it over, you see the gills underneath. And the gills are where the basidiospores are, and then they are released. And there's the other one that's not broken off yet. And if I pan over just slightly, we have some other types of white mushrooms, which are, these are different than the other ones we've seen in the cow patties. These are white, the other ones are not. Actually, you can compare the color here so that you can see they're different. And in this pile, there's another mushroom. So there's all sorts of different type of fungi, and some of them can even be quite pretty and quite brightly colored. This mushroom is fully open. And when I uproot it, notice it has gills. And see how open it's become. It's like an inverted umbrella. My dogs are coming to say hello. They don't understand why I've stopped. See, everybody says, "What's wrong, Mom?" Badger! They say, "What's wrong, Mom? Why are you stopping? Is there a problem?" No, I'm checking out a mushroom, guys. Leave me alone for a minute. Hi, Ruger. Different fungi, fruiting bodies that I found in the yard. Notice the difference in color. But what's interesting is one of them is a mushroom and one of them's not. Even though it looks like a mushroom. Mushrooms have gills. And if you notice, this one has the gills. But when you flip this one over in the cap of the fruiting body, it looks like a sponge. It doesn't look like a gill at all. There's the sponge there. So that's a different fruiting body of a different fungus. Okay, and here's the fruiting body. And even though it looks like a mushroom, it's really not a mushroom. Because when we flip it over, and this is where it is, just so you can see. Okay, so it's damp because it's been raining, and that's why the fruiting bodies have come up. But when we flip it over, it doesn't have gills. It has that sponge-like appearance. Now here's one. I'm just a little bit farther down the path. And this is a white one. So this is probably the Basidium mycota. So let's flip him over. But see, it's not totally open yet. So you know what? I'll come back and we'll see. Come here, Badger. Badger just wanted to say hi. Come here, Badger. Come here, Badge. Hi, Badge. Yes, that's what I walk with. Anyway, we'll come back later and see if that's opened up further, and then we can see a little bit of the development. It's past the button stage, but it's not fully opened yet. Now, just a couple feet away from that mushroom, we have a cow patty. And in the cow patty, I want you to notice there's some small mushrooms. Here's one here, and here's one here, and there's some little ones just coming up still. Right there and right there. They're still trying to come up. Now, these, I'm going to take, this one looks the most mature, so I'm going to grab it, and we flip it over, and I want you to notice that there's the gills. I just wanted to show you if this is was a flower bud that fell off, and now it's been raining, it's on the ground, so we have this mold or fungi that has developed on here. It's a flower bud that has fallen to the ground, and in the wet and the rain, we've got a really nice example of a fungi that's growing on it. In Lab 4.3, we're supposed to be looking at molds, which most of us can find around the house. Here's a really good example of a bread mold that we're going to look at quickly under the magnifying glass. And here is a strawberry mold. And so if we get a piece of the bread where the mold is, and we put it, this is just at 10x once again, so this is just a slight magnification, but you still get a better feel for what these look like. And I'm going to take this up to 3, which would be 30x. Adjust. There we go. You can start to see the actual sporophores there. And you see the little stalks that they're on. And we're looking down at them. But especially, let's say, over here, you can see the stalk. And then here you can see the end of the sporangiaphores, where the spores are, which we'll look at those spores in just a minute under the higher power microscope. And then let's take a look at the strawberry mold, which is slightly different. So I'm going to push this one out of the way. I'm going to go back to 10x, hopefully to help us get a better view. And see what we can get there. There's our piece of strawberry. And there we see our mold surface right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up to 30. It looks kind of fibrous. I hope you can see that. You can see the actual hyphae, these filamentous cells of the fungus. And that's why it has kind of a hair look to it. Once again, this is the 30 power. This is the bread mold, the black bread mold actually, under 40 power, and you can really see the sporangiophore right there. I want you to notice I have my gloves on. I'm being a good girl because it said to use gloves. Okay, and you can see the hyphae, these filamentous cells, and all the way up to the top, and this is just covered in spores up here. Everything there is just covered in spores. And then we'll go ahead and go, I just wanted you to see, now we're going to look at it squished underwater. First off, you can see that in squishing it we have released a whole bunch of these spores. And there is a sporangiophore like we were looking at before. So let's go ahead and take it up. Try to get a better look. There it is. There's the stalk. It's upside down now, obviously, but there it is. And then if we go ahead up to 400, wow, there's the spores. Really nice shot. I know it is upside down, but there you can see the mycelium, which are these thread-like filamentous fungal cells. There's their spores, and there's the sporangiophore that it came off of. Actually, I think the sporophore, this is actually a conidiophore because there's no enclosure over it rather than a sporangiophore. So I apologize for that. Fungus expert I am not. But what we have here is, yeah, I see that. If you see this movement right here, is that what you're looking at? Yeah, I was noticing that myself. It seems to me we've got a flagellated bacteria that came off of this fungus, which doesn't surprise me because, yeah, there's some more. There's another one there. But it is a fungus, and so it would have some bacteria living with it. They might even feed off of it. There's no telling. There's another one there. So we've got a few things in here that are actually alive besides the fungus. Anyway, we got a really good picture. And let's go ahead then and look at the, the Hyphae. Here we have a really good example of the Hyphae, which is the filamentous cells that the fungus exists as. And you can see it coming out here, and actually. But once again, this is a conidiophore rather than a sporangiophore like I called it. They're all sporophores. But I don't see any enclosure over these, and so we got a really nice shot of the spores on the end of this bread mold. So we see why bread molds so quickly. Okay, let's look at the strawberry mold. This is the strawberry fungus, and we've got a really good shot here looking at the filaments of the actual hyphae that make up this fungus. And this is at 100 power. Just going to focus up and down a little so you can see we're actually going through this. And let's go ahead and take it up to 400 power and see what we get. This is under a slide cover. I'm going to try to take it to the edge. Wrong way. There we go. Really nice representation of the actual hyphae that make up this mold. And I want you to notice we have spores here and here. It's not full of spores like we saw with the fruiting bodies that we looked at with the Basidium mycota, but we do see some spores in here. But beautiful, beautiful representation of the hyphae. Once again, more spores down here. And that's the strawberry mold. There we go, at 400 power. Can you see it? That's your bread mold. You can see all the little spores, can't you? Oh. Can you guys see all the spores involved in that? See the little spores? No?
Yes. Not mine, no.
This is a green bread mold. Okay? Anyway. Oh my goodness! Look at this. Can you guys see all the hyphae? Everywhere. That's the zygospores. Remember they, yeah, they have 3 ways of reproducing, so they're like doing it. That's at 40 power, but that's not underwater or anything. That's just looking at it. Okay, guys, this is a mold on the cream cheese at 100 power. Can you see all the spores? Do you see all those little dots up there? Those are the spores. Okay? And here, let me go to 400 power. There. Here, you can see very clearly the hyphae. You see the hyphae? Then see all the spores.
Is that still in use?
That is the cream cheese mold, or the mold on the cream cheese, I should say. Okay, one of the molds. But look at all the spores, and then you can see the hyphae. Now, notice I'm at the edge of this whole thing. You can't do this from the center. I'm going to give it a little more light. See, and that's right here is the thick part of the mold. So you go to the very edge to look at it, and then you can see some of this stuff, all right? I hope you can see that. These are the basidiospores from the mushroom. These little guys have to be flagellated spores. Look at them all.
Now, you're not allowed to leave. We have to clean up now. Remember, you're going to take this test to read the first half of the next chapter.